Let's begin with an acknowledgement that First Parish Church was built on the unceded land of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the connection that they have continued to maintain with the land here in this place that we call the river. And we acknowledge the hardships they have endured and commit ourselves to caring for the land and fostering good relationships with our Indigenous neighbors. Here's our opening words.
These are words from William Schultz. We affirm that every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web. And hence, strangers need not be enemies. But no one is saved until we all are saved, when all means the whole of creation. Please join together in the words for the chalice lighting. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather together in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Please join in the affirmation of faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is the sacrament. Service is prayer. Dwell together in peace. With knowledge and freedom. Serve humanity and fellowship. To the end of all souls grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. And we have a hymn. Do we have a recording, or are we skipping? It's hymn number 131.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from free to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from free to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
As we gather here today, we share our lives, our joys, and our sorrows. Meister Eckhart, a Christian mystic who lived from 1260 to 1328, wrote this about a donkey, titled Love Does That. All day long, a little burro labors, sometimes with heavy loads on her back, and sometimes just with worries about things that bother only burros. And worries, as we know, can be more exhausting than physical labor.
Once in a while, a kind monk comes to her stable and brings a pear. But more than that, he looks into the burro's eyes and touches her ears. And for a few seconds, the burro is free and even seems to laugh, because love does that. Love frees. May we all know the healing power of love. Amen. Musical meditation. Our hymn is number 10 in the gray hymnal, Immortal Love. I suppose if there was ever a time when we should love one another, this would be it. On April 9th, 1945, a month less a day before Germany surrendered in World War II, prisoners were taken from their cells in a German prison and hung for their participation in a plot to dispose of Hitler. One of the prisoners was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran pastor born in 1906, entered seminary at the age of 17, and in 1930 traveled to New York to study at Union Theological Seminary. Bonhoeffer, unfortunately, I guess, was not overly impressed with Union Theological Seminary. But he was impressed by the civil rights movement among Black Americans, the struggles that the American Negro population was having with their civil rights. And he found in that struggle a belief in the ties between Christianity and human rights, and the responsibility of Christians in the face of injustice. Ordained in 1931 in Germany, just as Hitler was rising to power, he became active in opposing Hitler and the rise of National Socialism or Nazism. He traveled to England and America, but returned to Germany before World War II began, in spite of the fact that people tried to get him to stay in America where he'd be safe. And this is the twist in the story. Bonhoeffer's brother-in-law was an official in the Office of Military Intelligence, run under the command of an Admiral Wilhelm Canaris. Canaris also wanted to get rid of Hitler. So Bonhoeffer was given a position in the Office of Military Intelligence to protect him, because he couldn't be arrested or drafted. If you were drafted for military service, you had to take two oaths. One was to fight for Germany, and the other one was absolute obedience to Hitler. And Bonhoeffer managed to escape both of them. The office under Canaris was a center for secret or hidden German anti-Hitler activities. Canaris even managed on several occasions to have war plans transferred to the Allies before the Germans could carry them out. Bonhoeffer was arrested. His brother-in-law was arrested. A brother who also was working with the military intelligence service was arrested, and the admiral were arrested and executed on April 9th, 1940. In December of 1942, Bonhoeffer wrote an essay entitled After 10 Years, in which he reflected on how to live as a Christian in this world and the task of the world of the church, which he said, the church must speak out for those who cannot speak. The church must speak out for those who cannot speak. What remains for us, he wrote, is only the very narrow path, sometimes barely discernible, of taking each day as if it were the last, and living a faithful, responsible, as if there were yet to be a great future. Before his arrest, Bonhoeffer wrote an essay, 14 pages long in the copy that I got, of 14 pages long in the English translation copy, titled After 10 Years, in which he reflects on the 10 years under the dictatorship. Stupidity, he wrote, is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. One may protest against evil. It can be exposed and, if need be, prevented by the use of force. Evil always carries within itself the germ of its own subversion, in that it leaves behind at least a sense of unease in human beings. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protest nor the use of force accomplish anything. Reason falls on deaf ears. Facts that contradicts one's prejudgment simply need not be believed. In such moments, the stupid person even becomes critical. And when the facts are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential or incidental. In all this, the stupid person, in contrast to the malicious one, is utterly self-satisfied and, being easily irritated, becomes dangerous by going on the attack. For that reason, greater caution is called for when dealing with a stupid person than a malicious one. Never again will we try to persuade the stupid person with reason. It is senseless and dangerous. I had a friend I went to theological school with him, Bob Green, who was a UU minister. And years ago, he came up with a statement. Neither of us knew anything about Bonhoeffer at the time, but Bob Green came out with this saying, which sort of sums up Bonhoeffer. My mind is made up. Don't try to confuse me with the facts. Bonhoeffer pointed out that dealing with the stupid person means dealing with slogans and catchwords. We are familiar with slogans and catchwords. Russian President Putin claims that Russia is not waging war in Ukraine, but carrying out a special military operation. It's not a war, it's a special military operation. The Nazis claim that the death camps were the final solution. Sounds innocuous. The final solution sounds all right, so long as you don't point out the fact that it meant killing 7 million Jews and millions of other people, Seventh-day Adventists, because they wouldn't take the oath, gypsies, because who wants any gypsies around, people from Eastern Europe because they were Slavs, and you know, obviously the Slavs, the Poles, the Russians, the Czechoslovakians are inferior people. 7 million Jews and 3-4 million other people murdered in the final solution. Stupidity, according to Bonhoeffer, is a sociological problem rather than a psychological problem. We allow ourselves to be stupid, to be made stupid. What he called a strong upsurge of power in the public sphere. A strong upsurge of power in the public sphere can infect us with stupidity. We have had, we know what stupidity is. In this country, we've had occasions when we were taken by it. In the 1800s, we talked about manifest destiny. What does manifest destiny mean? Manifest destiny means it's our job to get rid of the Indians so white people can take their land. It's not what you say, you just say manifest destiny and it sounds nice. Yeah, it's our destiny. We could all come up with some slogans and catchwords from the current situation. When we become stupid, according to Bonhoeffer, we are under a spell, blinded, misused, and abused. Having thus become a mindless tool, capable of any evil, and at the same time, incapable of seeing that it is evil. Liberation, Bonhoeffer said, liberation from stupidity. In most cases, a genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. Well, we must see, Bonhoeffer wrote, world history from below, from the perspective of the outcasts, the suspects, the maltreated, the powerless, the oppressed and reviled. In short, from the perspective of the suffering, personal suffering is a more useful key, a more fruitful principle than personal happiness for exploring the meaning of the world in contemplation and action. Do justice to life in all its dimensions, and in this way, affirm. We must see the world from the bottom. We must not fall for slogans and catchphrases. In a letter to a friend, he wrote, "The ultimate question for a responsible person is to ask not how to extricate themselves heroically from this affair, but how the coming generation is to live." Well, we have a lot of slogans around. If I started saying them, I could be accused of being too political in this sermon. I think we all know some. We all have heard them over and over. It's our job to recognize and not be drawn in by nice sounding phrases which mean terrible things to other people. Meister Eckhart, in that little thing about the donkey, the burro, remind us of the biblical instruction: love your neighbor as yourself. Not hate your neighbor because they're different, but love your neighbor as yourself because they're not good. Sarah Rudin, a translator of classical literature and university professor, tells us that a more accurate translation of love your neighbor as yourself is love the person next to you as yourself, whoever that person is. Love free is a catchword, a slogan, but it's a catchword that gives us hope and compassion. Love one another is a slogan worth carrying in our hearts to protect us from stupidity. To protect us from stupidity, to make us free, because as Eckhart reminds us, love does that. Love makes us free. Church is supported by donation. Let us join together in words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together. Our hymn is number 318, We Would Be One.
As now we join in singing,
Anne Frank, one of the victims of the final solution, wrote in her diary, "I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet if I look up into the heavens, I think that it'll all come right, and this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, and perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out." Go with peace, go with love, go to serve.